Hi, teachers. I'm Walter from EOT in Brazil. This is my peer, Bruno Albuquerque. And we are here today yet again to talk about Delta. Today, we're going to talk about task 2 of paper 2. It's one of the most interesting tasks. And let me ask you a question. As a teacher, when you were given the materials you're going to use throughout the year, how do you deal with these books? Are you generally critical about them? Do you look at them and you just follow it, or you select tasks, or do you actually make the connections between the exercises? Do you see the reason why the person who wrote that book put that task in that place of that specific unit? All of that's going to be very, very important for this task. All right? So I'll see you in a second. Roda a vinheta.
Roda a vinheta, até já.
Bruno, should I share? Yep.
Sure.
Okay.
This is a
Here
very
it is.
interesting task, Walter. I must say.
I guess it's, how can I put this? I think it's the one that, if you're able to do this really well, it kind of means something. Well, the whole thing does, because you are knowledgeable. But I mean, if you understand the task, if you're able to complete this task well, then it should mean that you probably know really well what you're doing in the classroom, right? And that you at least understand really well the materials you're handed.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think I think that if you do this task successfully, it's a very good predictor that you're an aware teacher and that you know what you're doing in class. It's a very, very interesting task.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you take a look at exercise 2, and then I'm going to show you the rubrics in a second, but here's the thing. You have 3 parts of the same task. You have part A, B, and C, 2A, 2B, 2C. The whole exercise is worth 42 marks, if I'm not mistaken. I believe so, right? Yeah, so part A, you get a total of 12 marks, part B, another 12 marks, and then in part C, you have 18 marks. Well, you have a page of a book, actually 2, usually sometimes even 3, and then you're given this, right? So let's take a look at exercise A first. Identify 6 purposes of the exercises listed in the box below in relation to the purpose of the extract as a whole. And then it's asking you to analyze. Let's use colors here, right? So A, reading A, it's this one. Then I'm going to change colors, and actually this is, well, I'm actually going to use the same for task A. Reading C, and
D.
Reading
yes,
D,
C and D.
Right? So you have 3 exercises there selected for part A. Usually when you take one of the prep courses, and again, I have to remind you, this is not a prep course. Bruno and myself, we are not Delta tutors, right? This is just a view as a student of the test, right? They would, though, recommend that you do this. So for task B, you have grammar A and grammar B. So we're going to go to grammar A and grammar B, A and B. And then for part C, you have grammar A, B, and C. Grammar A, B, and C. And then I'm going to get another color. Let me go with light blue here, right? So we know which tasks they're talking about, right? Very well. Now, take a look at exercise A. You are going to talk about the purposes. And this is the key word in here, right? Purposes, right? And it is fundamental that you understand that even the language that you're going to use in the task is the language that Cambridge expects you to use. Right, Bruno? Do you have any example of your, Off
My
the back of your
suggestion here
head.
is to begin with to
There
do
you go.
something,
And
right?
I'm actually gonna write it down because you're gonna use the infinitive of purposes here, right? So you're always gonna, for
Yeah.
example, to give, to
Mm-hmm.
do, or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. Well,
So
if you look
reading
at it,
A is probably to activate schemata.
and there
It's
you go, right?
usually
Well,
it.
how many are they supposed to write in part A? Even though
Six.
there are
So
three
two
exercises,
for
but there's
each, right?
two for each, right? So
Yeah.
about
Uh,
at least six.
yeah. Yeah.
Even though I don't remember if you actually have to write two for each or just a
Oh
six in
no.
total.
No,
Uh,
six in total.
Six in
I
total, right?
don't think you should skip any of them though,
You should talk about
right?
all of them, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, even if it's at least one of each, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just
Mm-hmm.
to be in the safe side, anyway.
Yeah.
So when you look at a task A, what kinds of people do you admire most, and why? So I guess Bruno already gave you an example, but let's write it down, right? So
Mm-hmm.
here I left some language that could help you with the task. But well, let's say, Bruno, you said to introduce the topic or
It could be.
to
I said to activate student schemata on the topic.
that
But it
that
can be
that
to
that is a
introduce the
good one.
topic as well.
I'm actually going to write it down. So reading A to activate students
Schemata on the
schemata.
topic.
That is one
But
already, right?
yours is valid as well, right? So to introduce the topic of the lesson.
Yes, yes. And I don't remember if but it doesn't have to be something complex or like long sentences or anything, right?
No.
They might be somewhat simple, you
Mm-hmm.
call it, right? Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna read some examples from old mocks that might give you, some other ideas. For example, to generate interest, to introduce the topic, to set context for rules, to activate schemata, to provide the opportunity to use the target language. And then you have to specify what the target language is because it's the first time you're using it. To provide the opportunity to teach or use context-related vocabulary, things that go just like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bruno, might we take a look at task B? C.
Okay.
Read Apple's design genius, the woman who invented children's TV quickly, and check your answers. The word quickly kind of gives you the idea.
Yeah, you're skimming.
Yeah, you're skimming, so you already know what kind of reading these students doing, right?
Yeah, so reading for gist,
Yeah.
To give students the opportunity to read for gist,
To
or
allow or to
to
give, both would be great. Students to read
for gist.
the text for general or for the gist, or to
General
provide
comprehension.
students with skimming strategies, if you will. No, I wouldn't use strategies in here because the strategies will come from the teacher, not necessarily from the book. But okay, to give students a task in which they'll have to skim or practice skimming for the gist.
And sometimes very simple, very obvious things. This was one of the things that during my last prep course, I mentioned I took 3, right? During my last prep course, the tutors mentioned sometimes things are obvious and you're allowed to say them, right? So maybe to allow students to encounter the text for the first time.
Yes, yes.
Right.
And
So
I will add one more thing. Cambridge don't want you to memorize things and put it in the paper. You really have to demonstrate that you know this stuff. However, I got this from my tutor. Really memorize this kind of language. You are going to use it. right? You are going to use it, but they will have to make sense according to the text that you're to the tasks that you're given. But and most of all, don't forget that you were going to use this,
Yeah, infinitive.
right? In part A, we're talking about purpose.
What
That
about
being said,
B then?
I think we can move on. Yeah. So this one's also very interesting. I think this is something that as a teacher you kind of have to go through at some point in your career. You have to go through this and understand this kind of thing. You're gonna comment on 6 ways, in which exercise listed in the box below combine with the exercises discussed in A. So you're gonna combine grammar A and B to this, right? It is a combination, so you are always going to have to do it. And in order to do this time you're going to use, remember that here you had to use infinitive of purpose to give. This time it is going to be this, gives. So you're always going to use the third person for singular, for the third person, the singular form, right? So every time. Moving on, you take a look. Grammar A extends, introduces, checks, provides from exercise reading A. It'll look like something like that. Bruno, do you want to do one?
Sure.
Yep.
So reading ABC and grammar AB.
Yes. So let's take a look at grammar A. Match the verbs 1 to 6 in bold in the text. And then you have the grammar tenses. Match the verbs. Okay, so they come from the text, which I guess we are going to combine to exercise C or D, not A, because A was pre-reading. They didn't have to read the text. And then you're going to go to grammar, right? So I would say something like, go down there. Grammar A uses the, let's take a look at D again. Okay, so
yeah, it's more intensive reading there, right?
Yes. And you see, he helped, he was working, had training, carried out, set up, initially found the book. So it uses the language from exercise. I wouldn't, you could, okay, uses the language in exercise
reading B, right?
Reading C to focus, to provide focus maybe on the target language.
Yeah.
And then which is perfect tenses.
It seems to be a review of verb tenses, right? Is it only perfect tenses?
Let me check. I don't remember. No,
verb tenses then.
Verb tenses.
It's the classic upper intermediate class, right?
Isn't it?
Every book has one of these. Yeah, a review of the most useful verb tenses.
I messed it up, eh? Okay, now it's back. Which is a review of grammar tenses. There you have it. You got one, right? And then there is exercise. Oh, yeah, mind you, this is not a task that you're going to find anywhere. I created this for the purpose of this video. So I used one material that I had available to me, and I wrote the task, right? But in the end, Bruno, if you want to share another one from the handbook, that would be
I can.
that'll be good. Yeah.
For example, B is an easy one. Complete the sentences with the tenses in 2A, right?
Mhm.
So this connects to the same exercise that we were looking at, the
Mhm.
reading
C,
D,
reading C,
C,
D,
reading
yes.
D. Yeah, as in grammar B provides controlled practice on the verb tenses focused on reading D, for example.
Let me write it down. So grammar B
B
provides
controlled practice on the target language, so we don't have to say verb tenses. Controlled
practice
practice
uh
on the
and
target language.
now you can just write
Yeah.
TL because you already established that, right?
Mhm.
The TL seen in
Reading D.
reading D, right? Oh, by the way, in here, there's one more that it just occurred to me. You could do something like reading D introduces the target language,
Sure. Oh, this is a big
which
one.
is a review of grammar tenses. Nice.
Mm.
Good. And now we move on to task C. Task C. You want to read this one?
Identify a total of 6 key assumptions about language learning that are evident in the exercises listed in the box below. Explain why each assumption might be considered important for language learning and state which exercise or exercises each assumption refers to. So this is into beliefs, right, about language learning and language teaching. So whatever principle you can identify as in the noticing language in context is important for language learning, or practicing language in context is important for language learning. What else? Activating schemata help students understand the text or connect with the theme of the lesson, right? So all of these ideas that we have about language learning, this is where they come now.
And it is exactly what Bruno said. One thing I wanted to stress is that you need 6. They have to be assumptions about exactly the way, what Bruno was just talking about. And you have to say why, which means you have to give the reader the reasons why you said that. And you need to state which exercise you're talking about every time. So it'll look like something like this. Assumption number 1. Because in that case, the students had to read the text, and then the target language was contextualized from a text, we could say that was a noticing, right? But you could talk about, for example, if there was some guided discovery, right? Could we say this is guided discovery? Let's see. Taking a look at exercise B. Refers
I
to an
wouldn't say
event.
it's discovery because it's a review. So
It is a
I don't think they're
review, but
discovering anything.
I mean, when you think about inductive and deductive teaching or learning, and by the way, a guided it's guided discovery, right? I'm not crazy.
There is guided discovery, but I don't know what
There's
you're
guy,
going to
yeah.
say next.
I'm it's like, why did that sound wrong to me for a second?
No, it is a
So
thing.
guided is something else. No, it's guided discovery. If you're talking about deductive teaching, then the students would be presented with a set of rules, and then they would study these rules, like they read, oh, should is
Then
used for
produce
advice, and then they have to do an exercise or complete something. That would be deductive. In this case, they have to complete this with the time tense. Okay, so to refer to an event that takes place at a specific time. So I do think that this is guided discovery as well. I would write it as an assumption, but Bruno might not agree with me.
I think this exercise is systematizing the
It does,
grammar,
because
the grammar,
you're
but
you.
yeah.
Can you give me one then? Okay, so do we agree on noticing?
Oh yes,
Okay,
definitely.
noticing is helpful. Be is
Yeah,
helpful.
it's missing an L there. Helpful.
Oh, sorry.
Uh,
Yeah,
sorry.
helpful.
Noticing is
No,
helpful.
okay. Noticing aids learning.
Okay.
Okay, this is my
Um,
assumption.
because it allows students to see the language in context.
Because it allows students to see language in context. That's brilliant. You could actually go, you could actually think of something else, but you have to remember that when you use one of the reasons, you're probably not going to repeat yourself, right?
Mm.
But you could say something like, because students doing coming when students have to come up with um, definitions on their own, work out the meaning
Mhm.
on their own, it aids memory retention. That is a
Mhm.
common one. You actually see that in many papers. Let me
Mhm.
read them. I'm going to read some others from other mocks, just, to contextualize, give you some ideas, right? Let me see. I wanted something that would work out with this one. Learners need to see the
I
target.
really like this format for answer that you created.
You do
Assumption, something, reason, something,
reason
exercise.
exercise.
It's a
Yes.
very nice framework to answer this task. I wrote a complete sentence like
Also, you
I
would
would
go
say
as
noticing aids
blah
learning
blah blah
because it allows
because
students to see language in context, and we can see that in grammar A, right?
and
But I
you
like the framework.
you know that there are many reports out there, and I've seen some exam reports in which people wrote this way and didn't get many points, and some others who got most of the points. But I've
Mhm.
seen the other way around too. People who wrote the way you did. I think what matters is that the assumption is correct and that the reason makes sense. And
Mhm.
that you establish the exercise, because if you don't establish
Mhm.
the exercise, then
Yeah, you
it
lose the
might be a
marks.
problem. Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't forget this, right? But if you can, and if you will remember the setup here,
Mhm.
it might be helpful, right?
Yeah.
um and that is it for task 2 of paper 2.
We're almost there. One to go. Yeah.
One to go, one more to go.
Folks, a suggestion for to help you prepare for this task, right? It's task 2. Um get the activities. So we have to find the reason for activities. We have to connect activities to one another, and we have to try to extract the principles and the beliefs that came before the authoring of the course book to support the course book. Get any of your material, any of your course books, and try to figure out. Right, I think it's and it will probably help you plan classes. So
Yeah,
it's
can I add one then?
um,
um I like, I guess both you and I have done many mocks out there, right? The ones that were available, we could get our hands to
yeah.
them. We did it, right? And there was only one that is it's just memorable because it was the only one that I had in which the material used TBL.
Oh, nice.
That was like, oh, that was so interesting because you hardly ever see materials out there
Uh,
using TBL. Like
mhm.
the day I took my actual Delta, the book was using deductive learning, which means they were
Oh,
studying
cool.
examples. And there's a
Mhm.
variety of materials out there. Just so we,
Mhm.
if we are ever going to talk about methods and theories of learning here, then it's how you believe languages are learned. And then when you
Mhm.
understand that question and you start looking at your books, the materials you're using, you might even quit your job. Right, because you're like, yeah, I don't believe this works, right? But this is like based on grammar translation, it's all deductive learning, and I don't really believe it. That helps, right? I'm not saying you should do it.
Yeah, you gotta pay
But
the
I
bills.
mean, yeah, and then take a look at the mocks that Cambridge offers, and there is an exam report together with it, and then you will see many examples out there, right? But
Yeah,
we do hope that this video helped you, so you got to know what to do in this exercise.
yeah.
And by the way, this is the most confusing task of the papers, of both papers, I believe. I don't believe there's any other that is as confusing as this,
Yeah.
like knowing what to do in each part.
Yeah,
Right.
but then again, if you watch this video, you know what to do now.
Yeah,
And it's
you
48
do.
marks out of the 100 marks that you need to pass,
42.
right?
42.
Yeah, so it's
Yes.
almost half then. So
Yeah, and how did you do in your in your actual Delta? Do you remember if this was a good
I think
one?
I passed because of this task and task 3 from paper 2. Yeah, as I
Really?
mentioned, the grammar task in paper 1, I probably failed very hard. But I
Which one?
finished paper 2, the grammar task that you have to
Task
to
5.
analyze.
Task
Yes,
5.
task 5, paper 1.
50
Yeah.
marks.
Yeah, I think I failed that like substantially, but I finished paper 2 some 25 to 30 minutes before the bell rang.
You're
Because I was
kidding me.
I was very comfortable with task 2 and task 3. So I did task 2 and task 3, and I was like, I'm done. And then I looked at the clock. There was like 20 to 25 minutes left to go. And I was like, nothing else to do here.
Unbelievable.
Goodbye. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Paper
that's
2, paper 2 was my salvation.
but you know what, Bruno? I think that establishes the level of preparation that you had done, all right? Because you took the safe road there, right? Like you took the like different prep courses and there we go. I think that's a great idea, right? Because then if you can sit the exam and feel that comfortable with the test, I don't think anybody's gonna feel comfortable with this one, but I
Right.
mean, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
I myself, I am pretty sure I did well in this task.
Oh,
Task 3, not at all,
yeah.
because I didn't have time.
Oh shit.
I just didn't have time. Task 1 to me, I'm like, I just don't know, but I think I kind of screwed it up. Maybe, but it's 16 marks, 18 marks, something like that. So
Yeah,
it's not
so
much. But yeah, let's move on. See you
yes.
in the next video.
All
Thank
right.
you.
See
And
you. Bye.
as always, please give us a like and subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate
Yep.
it. And if you can, leave us a comment. We appreciate it.
Yep.
See you later.
See you.